This video's made for adult collectors because Wheeljack looks like Albert Einstein for some reason. And then they named him after a James Bond character. I like the Bayverse redesigns quite a bit. They're really cool and interesting looking. However, this is the only one where I've hated it. I don't like it because we went from this to this. No, that's the wrong one. To this. No, that's still the wrong one. There we go. Albert Einstein looking head out. This feels like an old Bayverse toy, but not in a bad way. It has a lot of Studio Series qualities, yes, but transforming and messing with it reminds me of like an older Revenge of the Fallen or Hunt for the Decepticons toy, kind of. It's more Studio Series than old Bay toy, but there are some qualities that kind of gave me that nostalgic feel for those older toy lines the first time I messed with this thing. I have the original Q, and while neat, its proportions feel off, it's really flat, and its transformation doesn't really do anything super interesting. This, though, changes a lot of that. This is Q from Transformers Dark of the Moon, and this was bought at Walmart Canada. Here's the box, not sponsored. Armada Wheeljack. And he looks freaky, and none of my family likes the look of this toy. But I do, kind of. It looks like a pudgy, goofy scientist guy who has a badass death in the book and a this death in the film. This figure confused a lot of people when they announced it, because like, how does the articulation work? How does the transformation look? You can't really tell from looking at the promo render of this figure. He looks great, apart from all the gray. Very Studio Series thing. It works okay here, but yeah, I'm part of the crew that feels like it needs a little bit more color to it. There are a lot of nice details in here, such as all the tools all over his belt and what looks like a V-neck shirt he's been wearing so much that the neck is no longer a V, it's now a U. He also has a bit of a beer gut going on, which is kind of funny. The head is freaky, but accurate. They got the metallic blue on his hair, which is nice, and they picked out the gold stash. And there's a lot of great detail here with the magnifying glasses on his eyes and so on. But because of this gray, it feels a bit lost, which is a shame. There's so much nice stuff going on there you can't really appreciate. A lot of the car is tacked onto his back, which at first I was like, eh, but in person it kind of goes along with that whole lab coat look. That mixed with the actual lab coat side skirts makes the whole thing feel a lot more integrated and less tacked onto the back. And this is where you can peg the stick of doom he never used that completes the whole look for me. He isn't tall, but he is chunky, so I'm not mad about the size because there is a lot of plastic on this thing. He can hold both the stick of doom he never used and this gun that he never used. I've seen some people want the boomstick and the grapplers, but they wouldn't have added anything to this figure for me, and they would have been way too small for him anyways because they were human-sized in the film. Now, people were questioning the articulation of this toy. How does it work? Well, it works in some very interesting and weird ways. So it has most of the posing you'd find in something like this, but it's a bit awkward to use because of just how he's dressed up, basically. So the head is on a ball joint and it sits in slightly weird angles. We can look down quite a bit. He can't look up at all. He has no tilt, but you do have rotation, although it only goes about that far before the chin bumps into the back of the collar. But you can at least grip it. I thought the grip was going to be an issue because of how round his head is, but you can grip it and turn it left and right. Also, just a quick little comparison thing to the old head. God, the new one, while they both look creepy, the new one looks so much better. Stop it. The new one looks so... Okay, there it goes. The new one looks so much better. So, that's kind of funny. These shoulder pads, they can move out of the way to accommodate the arms. They can go out about that far. You got forward rotation. They can go forward about that far. They can go back that far. You've got a bicep rotation. You have a ball jointed elbow, so it can go 90 degrees. But it can also rotate, so that's technically your wrist swivel as well. So he does have that, and then you have that secondary joint for transformation if you want to use that at all. So you can get a gorilla arm double jointed elbow. The backpack, as you can see, doesn't really peg in, so it does shift a little bit when you hold it. It doesn't like come loose or flop around, it just moves like that. So it's a tiny bit annoying. However, you can use this to your advantage slightly because you can move it back and get a little bit more forward range in the shoulders. So that's cool. There is no waist joint. That bugs me a little bit, but due to how there's like this massive channel cut into his torso for this entire hinge to go into, I can see why there is no waist joint. However, it would have been nice, but then again, I'm not going to get him into like a roundhouse kicking pose because it's freaking Q. The hip skirts can move out of the way to accommodate the leg ball joints, which are a tiny bit loose on my copy. This one's really loose. The hips can go forward, they can't go back, they can go in and out. He can't do a full split. You do have a thigh rotation. You have 90 degrees of bend at the knee. And then His feet are sculpted at an angle so he can stand at an A stance. However, there's a pin right here because for transformation, this has to rotate, and you can simulate a weird ankle tilt. So he still has an ankle tilt, it's just weird, but he does have one, which is something that I personally am really happy with, even if it is a little bit higher up than I would like. I'm still happy that it's there. So yeah, his posing is pretty all right. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible by any means. Again, it's just this without a waist joint and slightly weirder range, but it is a bit awkward. So yeah, he has all the articulation minus the waist, but it's still pretty good. But what made this feel like I was going back to the Bay vs. Basics thing to me was the transformation. It's very neat, let's say. Okay, I know a lot of people probably haven't experienced this mold because it did get canceled over here. This only came out in a couple countries, and then this one only came out in Japan. So like, experiencing this mold is really hard, but this is very different. If you have experienced that, then this will surprise you. It surprised me. It's really intricate and complex, but also easy at the same time. Like, it's not like this. I still enjoy this, but it's not like this where it's complicated and some fit and finish issues in like the back end. This actually, he fell over. This actually feels quite nice. So to start with, what we're going to do is we're going to take these door sections at the back here and then unpeg them and bring them out. Unlike Jolt, they're nice and tucked away and not sticking out of his hips. Then we're going to take the backpack and shift it up, and that will in turn bring the windshield up, and we're just going to leave it up there. So now we're going to take the feet. You're going to rotate at that weird ankle joint. You're going to fold the foot in and then fold up the heel, and then continue going the rest of the way, close the trunk, and that's one side of the back of the car done. So let's do that again on this side. Line it up, close the trunk. Then you want to peg the legs together and then just leave that there like that. Now the arms, you're going to want to rotate these 180 degrees at the bicep swivel and then bend these sections in like that. Bring them into the torso, line them up, and then peg the roof together. If I can, there we go, got it. Then you bring this section in and it will sort of tab together. This is not a secure connection, but that's not the actual locking points, that's fine. Then you bring this down and then you're gonna wanna press this. I find pressing it right here helps because then it clicks into place. Then you take this section and it's on a double armature and you just wanna basically bring the hood down and then rotate this in like so. And then these pieces are going to fold into here. Now, if you notice, there's this tiny little square right here. That's the clip mechanism that holds this in place. It was a bit tough at first to get this to go in, but you just got to give it some force and it will go in. And you peg that into place. So we'll do the same on this side. Bring this around and up, clip it into place. Then finally, you take the doors here and they're just going to clip into the side and peg everything together. They are the locking mechanism. And once you get that all situated, there you have your Mercedes E550. He's just hanging out the bottom there. But it's a really fun thing to flip back and forth. It's a Bayverse transformation, but it's a nice Bayverse transformation, and I really adore it. Also, I don't think I have this written in the script, but if I do, oh well, we're gonna say it again. But there's weapon storage, yay. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I would have liked it if there was a way to stick this underneath the vehicle, but as you can see, it's actually taller than the vehicle, so it wouldn't fit. But I enjoy doing that. I am very impressed by this Mercedes E550. When they talked about it on stream, it felt like they put a lot of effort into this car mode, and it shows. Headlights, taillights, grille, all painted. Windows are tinted black. They got the clear plastic window to match the black painted windows, and they got all the badges. And not just the Merc badges. They painted the E550 logo on the back, and it's readable. They don't do that very often, if ever, and that's a really cool level of detail. Like, I really like that. And it's also just an car. It's so car. It's the most normal of car. Granted, the E550 isn't a cheap car. It's still a car I can see sitting in traffic minding its own business. It truly feels like a robot in disguise. Weapon, as I said, can store on the side, but Transformers weapon storage, what do you expect? All the wheels are pinned on the inside, which is nice, but one of mine is pinned a bit too tight, so rolling doesn't really work. Bit of a shame. But I do like this toy, all things considered. I wish it had more paint in the robot mode, and I gotta fix the hips, but the lack of the waist doesn't bug me, because I wasn't planning on like putting Q in an Iron Man pose arms or whatever. He's just gonna stand there. It's just a neat and nifty compact deluxe that I think just skirts over the me thinking it's worth full price thing. I definitely recommend it to any Bayverse fan, especially considering we technically never got a Q figure in North America before because the other one got canceled. It came out in England, I believe, and in some parts of Japan. But yeah, if for a worldwide release, it didn't happen. So if you want a Q, this is the only way to get it. So I definitely recommend that. But that's been my look at Studio Series Dark of the Moon Q. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.